Hey guys, welcome back to the Ivestone podcast. I'm Anderson Miller, and this is going to be something new that I'm doing once a week where I talk about wrestling. And to give you a little backstory to this, we covered The Wrestler, which is a movie starring Mickey Rourke about a wrestler at the end of his road. It's a very good movie. We had our special guest on, who was our friend Ryan Madden. And Ryan just happens to be somewhat of a wrestling expert. He knows his stuff, especially with history in wrestling. So we brought him on for his insight on that film and what he thought about the whole wrestling side of it. But as a fellow wrestling fan, it was hard for us not to just start talking about wrestling as it was at that time, which when we posted that episode, AEW was going to Wembley Stadium, which was like a historic thing. And so we talked about the match card for that and all the things going on with like CM Punk and the drama backstage. And that was before stuff happened with him and Jack Perry. But yeah, it was an exciting time to be a wrestling fan and to talk about this stuff. And I realized after that episode, I would love to do that on the show. So when we were talking about bringing back the podcast, I was like, hey, Dima, do you care if I do this wrestling thing once a week? And he's like, no. So here we are. The goal is I'm going to do this episode every Tuesday. And that way, at that point, we will have had, because to me, Monday Night Raw is something I would love to talk about immediately the next day. So at that point, we've had, everything from Tuesday all the way to the weekend if there is a PLE, and then Monday Night Raw. So I can talk about everything that led up to Raw or things that happened in AEW or TNA, etc. And kind of just give you my thoughts. And there's a whole bunch of ideas I have with this. I am recording this episode on a Wednesday because the first one I did, which was yesterday, I was a mess. I was not organized. I was rushed. And I said some things that were way off, and I don't know where my brain was at. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to redo my first episode. So if you are coming back because you wanted to reference that or you saw it and it looked completely different than this, I just deleted it. I'm redoing it. So I apologize if you did watch that because I did have a lot of people watch it. And somebody did make a comment about one of the things that I butchered. Again, I think I thought when I was saying things, I was saying the correct thing, but I wasn't. So I apologize if you saw that. You probably think I'm just an idiot. I don't know anything about wrestling, and that's fair. But I'm going to treat this like it's a fresh episode because it is. So I'm going to give some backstory on me as a wrestling fan, and then we're going to go ahead and jump into mainly this past weekend in wrestling because it was insane. There was so much wrestling, and I can't wait to talk about a few different things. Unfortunately, I'm going to be focusing more on the negative, and that's not going to be a normal thing, but there's something pretty big going on, and I feel like I just want to give my thoughts on it. So, backstory to me as a wrestling fan. When I was probably 6-7 years old, so this is like mid-90s, I got action figures from my uncle for Christmas. They were Sting, Goldberg, and Kevin Nash. So they were WCW figures. I was obsessed with them, even though I had no idea what they were from. I was just like, these are really cool looking action figures. And I also got a couple of Hot Wheels that were for like Bret Hart and some other people. So he kind of just got me into wrestling out of nowhere. I don't know what inspired him to do that. Unfortunately, he is not in my life now that I'm an adult for me to ask, like, hey, what made you give me all this wrestling stuff when you're for Christmas? Because my parents weren't into it. My grandparents weren't into it. We had family, like distant family that wrestled for WWF way back in the day, but I don't know what inspired him to do that. So it's interesting that he just randomly one Christmas got me these figures. And what else is interesting is one of my favorite movies to this day, because it's one of the first movies I remember from my childhood, is The Crow. So I get this action figure where the guy looks like he's the guy from The Crow. I'm pretty sure at that time I just thought that's who it was. And then I had two other guys that were tall and jacked, and I can make them all fight each other. So where things changed for me is when I started going to school after Christmas break with these action figures, because, I always brought my toys with me to school to play with on recess and whatever. And my friends thought they were so cool because they hadn't seen them before. Well, my friends watched WWF. I didn't watch wrestling at all. So I found out that WCW was a wrestling company and that WWF existed. And it's kind of crazy to think about because I was so into Sting and Goldberg. But I watched WWF. I didn't watch WCW. I was hooked. WWF, the presentation, the characters, everything about it. And I can tell you that I am a lifetime WWE fan in general, as it's now called. I have barely missed a Monday Night Raw. I could say I haven't missed any because if I do miss it, I always find a way to rewatch it. Now it's on Netflix, so it's literally the easiest thing ever. But Monday Night Raw has always been a staple in my life. It's something that no matter what age I am, where I'm at, what I'm into, I always watch Monday Night Raw. So I've had periods where I kind of get a little dry on wrestling. It's not really doing anything for me, and I don't keep up with it. I still watch Monday Night Raw, even if it's just like on in the background. I have always had it on my TV on Monday night, and I think that's interesting how no matter what, that's one thing about me that's just never changed. I've been hooked ever since. I remember my friend, his name was Nick. I can't remember his last name. I want to say it was Wright, Nick Wright. He was a weird kid in elementary school, but he's the one that introduced me to Stone Cold Steve Austin. And that changed my life. I mean, literally, I just was like, that is the coolest dude ever. So that brings me to today. Like I said, no matter where I've been in life, I've always been a wrestling fan. I've always at least watched Monday Night Raw. And I did mention there's dry spells. Vince McMahon, especially in the past 8 years or so, there's been a lot of downs and a few ups, but creatively and decisions made with talent and the overall presentation, it was just getting too cartoony and more aimed at a younger audience, I think, which that's fine. They owned up to it with their ratings and everything. And like I said, the presentation, you had a guy coming out on a scooter, like a razor scooter with CGI kangaroos bouncing around and whatever. I mean, it's not for me, So that brings me to AEW. AEW came at a great time in wrestling. We needed something new, fresh. We needed to see these talents that weren't being shown on TV. We needed to see them on that stage, right? Like get them that exposure, get them to new audiences. So AEW coming in was great. And you had a lot of big names that if you're a WWE fan, you're familiar with. Obviously, one of them being Chris Jericho and Cody Rhodes, who after he left WWE made a huge name for himself. I mean, he already had a big name, obviously, with his father being who his father is. But he made his own way, and that's something a lot of people respected. So when he's a part of this new company, and you got Chris Jericho, who's a legend, how are you not going to tune in? And yes, I did recognize a few of the wrestlers that were going to be there. Young Bucks, I had seen many videos of online. And then Kenny Omega, that's just somebody, he's like a unicorn in wrestling. It's like before he was on TV, I felt like somebody just needed to capture him. That somebody being WWE, but they couldn't. I'm pretty sure they've tried several times. They just can't get him. So the fact that I'm seeing a unicorn on live TV, I mean, Kenny Omega is just out of this world. And you got Will Ospreay, and Will Ospreay's crazy and everything, but Kenny Omega was that first wrestler outside of WWE that I became aware of, and I was like, whoa, that guy needs to be in WWE. He's just insane. It's insane how good he is on the mic, in the ring, outside of the ring. He just can't do any wrong. So I'm a big Kenny Omega fan. Unfortunately, AEW fell to the wayside for me because I think if I had to pinpoint my issue with AEW, it is that Tony Khan is like me if I had a lot of money and I could start my own wrestling company and hire all the people that I think are cool and then make cool matches happen that I think would be awesome to see. So like, yeah, that all sounds great. But the problem is he's new to it, right? He's just a fan who's doing this thing and he doesn't understand the business end of it or the fact that you have to let things build. You have to have that anticipation to let the excitement grow at a slow burn. And he just doesn't have it. And I think he's had talent at his side telling him that it needs to happen, but I think it gets pushed back on them. He doesn't know how to let things build. So I think creatively, unfortunately, things are just always too rushed for my liking, and it made me quit watching it as much. I do keep up with it. I will admit that right now I'm very out of the loop with the stories. The last time I was watching it regularly week to week is when we found out that the devil was Adam Cole. That whole storyline was cool, but I think they dropped the ball with it and they didn't do anything with it afterwards, which is what it's like. It was cool, but then you don't do anything with it. And then it's like, well, then that was basically a pointless waste of time. And that's how I feel about a lot of decisions that they make with stories, with talent, etc. And it sucks because if you look at the roster, he's constantly had a plethora of amazing talent, and he does not utilize them. He utilizes some of them. And I feel like sometimes he realizes that, and then we get these crazy, factions made. And I'll get into that, especially with All In Texas, because there's one that I have no idea how it happened. Like I said, I'm really out of loop with AEW at this time. It's been about 3 or 4 months since I've watched it regularly. I've tuned in here and there. With it being on HBO Max, that is a little bit of a game changer for me, because one of my big things is I don't have live TV. I don't want to pay for live TV anymore because I'm getting to a point where it's like I have so many streaming services that my bill for that looks equivalent to having cable. So then if I get cable again, it's like, why do I have all these streaming services? So, and yes, there are streaming services that have a live TV thing, but then that makes them more expensive within their own right. And I've done all of them. I've literally done every free trial. I've tried all the different. I've done Sling, Fubo, YouTube TV, you name it. I've tried it. Wasn't happy with it. I would say Hulu TV was the one I kept the longest, but I just couldn't justify paying for it. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous how much you got to pay for that. So I think I just had to sacrifice live TV, and I did. But unfortunately, besides we're all being on Netflix, WWE is still on live TV. So I don't get to watch SmackDown every Friday. Thankfully, there's a lot of TikTokers who post their reaction videos to the shows. So I get to watch NXT and SmackDown through TikTok. As bad as that is, it's just a fact. So that's how I keep up with those. And AEW, I'm going to make an effort to start watching, because I will tell you what, this past weekend they had All In Texas, and watching some of the highlights that I watched, I'm very intrigued at what the product looks like right now. So I'm going to be giving it a shot again. But yeah, so needless to say, I'm very much into wrestling, and I'm trying so hard to make time for all of it, because it is literally the best time in human history that we're aware of to be a wrestling fan. The amount of content out there is insane. There's so much for us to sink our teeth into. The only problem is time. And I'm not bad with time management. I just have so much on my plate. I'm the host of a movie and TV podcast. So right there, that's so much effort that I have to put in just to, being ready to present content once a week. Like, we're doing episodes on Sunday. So like, we literally just did our first episode back this past Sunday. And right now I'm preparing for this coming Sunday's episode. And we're talking about doing other things outside of that. And, so that's piling up. And then I want to do this wrestling thing, which is just me, and I am going to have guests on. I have a lot of people in my life that are really into wrestling. So I'm going to do a lot with this, but it's just hard to keep up with all the wrestling that's going on. Just in the two companies I've talked about, you got ROH, you got the two AEW shows, you have NXT, SmackDown, Raw, you've got Speed, and it's just crazy. I don't know. It's so much wrestling. And then you got New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'll tell you what I miss is Lucha Underground. I miss Lucha Underground. I could do a whole episode talking about Lucha Underground. But for what it's worth, sure, if you think about it, you'll realize a lot of the talent in Lucha Underground, like, yeah, there was talent from like prior, like people that you'd seen in other companies prior to it, but a lot of the talent that was in there are big names in the business today, whether they're in AEW or WWE. I just think it's really cool, and it shows the potential Lucha Underground had. So it's too bad that they are no longer a thing. But that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about the events of this past weekend. I'm trying to make sure there's not anything that I talk about my first episode I'm forgetting this time, because I did like my first episode, as rushed as it was and everything. I'm just trying to. Obviously my shirt. I'm a CM Punk guy. He is my favorite wrestling personality inside the business, outside of the business. I follow everything with him. I just think he's a very interesting person. I like his creative mind. I will say sometimes I feel like maybe I don't agree with how he views things in life. And that's not like a political thing. It's just in general. I've seen some interviews or I've heard him make comments, but recently it seems like he has matured on some of those things too. So there's that. And I think he had to mature a little bit to come back to WWE. I think he's even said that. So either way, I'm a huge CM Punk guy, and I can't admit that him leaving AEW was part of why I was kind of losing interest, because at that time I didn't realize it, but it was like as soon as he was off TV and I was still watching it, I was just like, like, I don't know about this. So it made me realize, and I mean, good Lord, they had to have a whole show for him because he couldn't be on the other shows with the other talent that didn't want to be around him. I mean, it just wasn't a good work environment, it sounds like. So either way, and that's another thing about AEW. I hate to go back on this real quick, but you have all these people on your roster, and you have 3 shows being televised in a week, and you can't find a way to fit them all. I don't know. It's weird to me. And also to give you an example, because it's my favorite, of talent being there and the potential to like get over with the fans and do something special being rushed and turned into something pointless. When Danhausen came in the company and you had these little vignettes or segments with him and Hook, everyone was like clamoring for them to become a tag team. And it was great how Danhausen was kind of pushing for it, and Hook's just eating chips and walking away and acting like he doesn't want anything to do with this dude. It was working for us. We were like, okay, we want this. And Tony Khan just gave it to us. It's like it barely, I think it had maybe 2 weeks of buildup, maybe 3. And then all of a sudden we have it, and they have a name, Hookhausen. They have T-shirts. And then they were a tag team for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, it was just like blink and you miss it. And that sucks. And I've even heard Danhausen on podcasts say that he feels like there was a lot of potential there and it got rushed. And I'm just like, yes, I agree. Another example is like Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, however you refer to him. He comes into the company, and right off the bat, I know us wrestling fans are just like dream matches, like shooting through our head. We got them all. I mean, look, we got them all. There was no wait. There was no build up. I mean, it's just like him and Kenny Omega happened so fast, and I was excited about it. It was an amazing match, but it's just like we couldn't build up to that a little bit more. Or I don't know. So it just sucked. What's up? Living it up. If you guys are into wrestling and football and rap music and all that good stuff, go follow Living It Up. There are my comments. I'll also be featured on this show. All right. So yeah, AEW, that's my biggest gripe with them is just I feel like they have way too much talent. They never know what to do with them. And it shows because if you look at the names that have come to WWE just in the past year that were big names there that weren't getting utilized, one of them being Ricky Saints. He's literally said on podcasts, like he wasn't injured. He wasn't wrestling other shows. He was sitting around waiting for a phone call. Like, so he's getting paid from AEW as an active talent and he's not doing anything and he doesn't know why. I feel like because they didn't know what to do with him. That's what I mean. There was no effort to do long-term storytelling. So if he can't do something that's like immediately gratifying and going to give fans a dream match, which is what Tony Khan is all about, then he's not going to get used. So, and I also think that's what happened with Wardlow. I don't think Tony Khan knew what to do with Wardlow. That guy was so over with the audience. When I went and saw AEW, he was over and he wasn't even there. Like they were chanting for him. He wasn't even there. So yeah. Anyways, it's enough griping about AEW. I am going to be giving it a fair shot because like I said, this past weekend, looks like AEW All In Texas delivered. And honestly, I can say just from the snippets I've seen of matches, they cleared Saturday night main event easily. Which that's a whole gripe session I'm going to get into in a second. So I'm going to go over matches and just give my thoughts on some things. Like I told you guys, AEW has a lot of talent, and I think sometimes Tony Khan just slaps the faction button and throws people together. So we have some interesting things going on. So the ops. I don't understand just Samoa Joe and Luke Hobbs. That's weird to me. And again, I'm not watching every week, so I don't know the story or the build up there. But you have them with Katsuri Shibata, and I don't know. It's weird. It's just weird seeing them together. And then you got the Death Riders, which is basically Blackpool Combat Club 2.0. And, that could be a whole gripe session in itself. I think John Moxley should still be in WWE, and that's like a primary example of like having talent and not knowing what to do with them. So you just group Claudio and Daniel Bryan and all these people together with William Regal, and you start some faction that does nothing. I mean, literally, they didn't do that much. So, anyways, so yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I didn't even look up that match. I was just like, what the heck is this? Now, the TNT Championship 4-way. That was definitely a oh shit last minute decision because unfortunately Adam Cole had to announce that he's injured or he has an ailment. We don't really know the details. A lot of speculation is pointing toward a match that him and Kyle Fletcher had recently where there was a little bit of a botch and Adam Cole smacked the back of his temple on the edge of the ring, and it looked very nasty. And a lot of people think that might have caused a serious concussion, yada, yada, yada. Whatever's going on with him, very sorry for him because I know this is his passion, and he's had a very bumpy road, especially since coming to AEW, and I feel for the guy. But he had to come out and announce that he was, going to have to relinquish the title. So they had this match instead, and Dustin Rhodes won, which is crazy. And he also won on the Crossroads, which when he did that, the pop was insane. So cool match. A lot of highlights from that. Highly recommend checking it out. I have to say, I've never been a big Daniel Garcia or Kyle Fletcher fan, but they are both very talented. Sammy Guevara annoys me, but he is also talented as well. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Young Bucks and Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. Holy crap. This match is definitely top 3 matches of this past weekend that I've seen. I have watched this entire match, and all I have to say is, people gripe about, when we start doing all the acrobatics and it just feels like a rehearsed thing. But in this match, it was reversals. It wasn't like when you watch Ricochet and Will Ospreay and they're like, okay, now we're going to do the thing. It was constant reversals, and it was so quick. It was believable. Like they sold the shit out of this match. It was so good. I mean, this match is just, it's an exemplary demonstration of what AEW is capable of with their talent when you have good booking. And from what I've read, there's been some very good storytelling going on with the Young Bucks. And in general, they're doing the founding fathers thing. You know, they're the vice presidents of AEW, so they're kind of playing into that. Swerve Strickland is so over right now. This guy can go anywhere, and he's going to make a lot of money. And then you put him with Will Ospreay, who, like I said, he's on par with Kenny Omega. Yeah, that's a gimme. So this match was insane, and I really enjoyed watching it. And I don't think there's anything else that I really want to comment on. I mean, Christian Cage getting betrayed. That's kind of funny that's even going on still, honestly. I remember when Nick Wayne came in AEW, because that's around the time I was still watching it weekly. I thought it was cool. Someone as young as him being signed to a wrestling company. And like, I listened to him on podcasts talk about like going to school and people don't understand how big of a deal it was. And now he's on TV. They're like, oh crap, dude. You know, so that was cool. I was excited for him, but the thing with Christian Cage got boring really quick, and you could tell it was written on the wall, like he's going to betray him. Now, I will say that was a long time ago. So there is one example of long-term storytelling, which is rare in AEW. So that's nice to see. And I don't think you can't have an Okada and Kenny Omega match and it not be a freaking banger. So obviously check that out. I watched a little bit of it. I didn't watch the whole thing because they've had so many matches and you just know it's going to be insane. Now, I just said earlier, Jon Moxley should not be in AEW. I will say that this match happening is amazing. Him, Adam Page, for the AEW World Championship is one of the top 3 matches this weekend. So 2 of the top 3 matches this weekend were AEW. And that's crazy because WWE had way more wrestling going on. Although I will say, I think this is the longest televised pay-per-view in wrestling history, or it's really close to WrestleMania 32, I think it is, one of the WrestleManias. But I mean, it was a 6-hour pay-per-view, so it's just crazy. It's a lot of wrestling. But they had a lot of good matches. So it wasn't just, I used to rent pay-per-views for AEW, and I get so mad because they'd go 4.5 to 5 hours, and most of it just felt like crap. And it was almost like Tony Khan would run around backstage and just be like, hey, you guys got matches now, and you guys got matches now, and we'll make it a death match, or, you know, like he'll just do all this crazy shit. So when you see the match card, it just looks like a freaking spectacle. But, you know, because it's rushed, the quality is lacking. So that's my thoughts on AEW All In. Like I said, I'm not watching it regularly, so I did not watch the pay-per-view. I had to go back and watch some of the matches that intrigued me, and the ones I picked were very good. So there's that. Before I get into Saturday night main event, I'm going to talk about NXT Great American Bash really quick. I just have to point out a few things. First of all, Jasper Troy, who's the winner of LFG Season 1, you get him and Javon Evans in a match together, and it can't go wrong, and it didn't. So highly recommend checking that match out. I've seen a lot of people saying it was a B match, but I thought it was really, really good. And most of that is on Javon Evans. He's just, I don't know, he's definitely the future of this business. And him and Montez Ford is a dream match for me, just throwing that out there. Sol Ruca is a monster. I'm so excited about her being in WWE. I'm always entertained watching her wrestle. And this is my other top 3 matches of the weekend. Anything goes, Falls Count Anywhere, Ricky Saints, Ethan Page. Classic match. Instant classic match. I watched the match first, and then I was watching highlights to watch people talking about it. That's how into it I was. So good. Such a good match. So there you go. top 3 matches, 2 were in AEW All In, 1 was in NXT's Great American Bash. So not even Saturday night main event. I will say there's an honorable mention on Evolution, which is the all women's PLE, and I'll talk about it. It was almost in my top 3, but I had to give it to the ones that I chose. And then, of course, the TNA championship match, contract signing. That was entertaining to watch. I have a big gripe with Dark State. I don't understand what that is, and I don't know if anybody does. They're just Temu Shield, I guess, is what people are referring to. I've seen that, and I've seen Off-Brand Shield and Make-A-Wish Shield. I don't know. Basically, the presentation and what they're doing is too much like something that we have seen in recent time to where no one's taking it seriously, and I don't think anyone's really interested in where it's going. So having them come out and attack Trick Williams and Mike Santana, whatever. I don't get it. And then the NXT Championship match, Obafemi and Yokishi and Yumura, was really good, but I'll be very honest, it was kind of predictable match, and I had some issues with the pacing, and I don't know if that was like communication errors with them in ring. I don't know, but it was okay. You know, I don't think it was anything great. If I had to rate it, I don't really rate matches, but I'd probably give it a B, maybe a B minus. So it was okay. So that's NXT Great American Bash. Also, if I'm butchering names, I'm sorry. I'm really bad with a lot of the out-of-country names, I guess is how I'll put that. Now, Evolution, I have to say, all around, I think, is the most successful collection of wrestling that happened this weekend. It was entertaining. I enjoyed the whole show. There wasn't really a moment where I was like, okay, I'm turning this off. I will say the only thing I was kind of worried about, and this might be a hot take, was Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus. Trish Stratus hasn't really done anything to impress me in recent years. I think she rides more off of her reputation and her history with wrestling more than what she's currently doing. And that just bores me. And I think a lot of hardcore wrestling fans will feel the same way. You're coming in, you're riding your own coattails from when you were younger and more in your prime. And I don't know. It's not like Goldberg, who will come out and still get into the shit, even if he's injured. And we'll get into that. But, you know, I have a lot of respect for Goldberg. So with all that being said, though, this match surprised me because Trish Stratus did some pretty awesome stuff in the ring. And it showed me that she actually took some time to train for it and prepare for it to put on a good show. And she did get a clapping, standing ovation at the end. So I think she won over the crowd as well, which was cool. And the Battle Royale, I will say I was pleasantly surprised by the Battle Royale because I thought for sure they were going to have a surprise entrant. But no, we literally got, you know, talent that we're familiar with that we would expect to see. And they put on a really good match. But Stephanie Becaire winning is definitely the right move. So I agree with that booking all the way. I'm very excited to see what she does in wrestling in general. I think she's just a very unique talent. Now, it's hard for me to say this, but Naomi, Rhea Ripley, and Io Sky. I'm bored with Rhea Ripley, for one. I feel like she gets shoehorned into any match that has any buildup or anticipation just because she's Rhea Ripley. I can respect that. She's got that edge to her. She's over. She's been over for a long time. I can't think of a time she wasn't over, even back in her NXT days. Like, she's just always been unique, and she's had that attitude. And a lot of that does remind, especially us older wrestling fans, of the Attitude Era and female wrestlers of that time. So there's a little nostalgic feeling there too with her overall presentation, how she does things. But with that being said, I just get so tired of the predictability of her being in a main event match, being in title matches. I'm just kind of like, okay. Uh, and I'm not a fan of Naomi. I never have been, but I can respect that she is talented in the ring and that she is a fan favorite. So I'm on a small group of people that probably don't care for her. With that being said, Io Sky, she's a monster, very talented. I enjoy her. I enjoy her having the title. That match was almost one of my top 3 matches of the weekend. I actually thought they delivered, and I have to say, I mean, obviously Naomi cashed in to win, so it wasn't a triple threat for long, but I feel like we knew it was going to happen, and actually one of the people I was watching this with called it, so it was like immediate. And I don't know, it was just a really good match. As much as I am tired of Rhea Ripley, I thought there was a lot of unique spots in the match and things that had people on the edge of their seat and like holy shit moments. And so, yeah, it was a good match. It almost got one of my top 3 for the weekend. And I think the only reason it didn't is because of Naomi coming out, cashing in. That was kind of predictable. But I did like it because it's a change of direction. I think we're going to steer away from Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, honestly, for a little bit. I'm hoping this goes more in a direction of like her and Jade Cargill or Bianca Belair. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of intrigued now with the women's world title. So we'll see what happens with that. And now I'm going to talk about my favorite part of this weekend. Saturday night's main event. I'm going to preface this with saying that I don't even have a match that I can say is my favorite, but if I had to pick, it would be Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. And the only reason it's not my favorite match on the card is because the ending was stupid. I don't understand the ending at all. I understand that Saturday night's main event has a time restriction, but one RKO, Drew McIntyre, he's out. Okay. Drew McIntyre can take several go to sleeps or several attitude adjustments, but right now, one RKO, he's cooked. But Cody Rhodes can take 3 and still not be pinned. Like that's what we're expected to believe. So I know that us as wrestling fans, we're very privy to wrestling being scripted and yada, 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 and we know the inner workings. But with that being said, you're still trying to sell us on a story, and that's why we're fans. We like the story. We like the characters. So when you just throw one of the biggest characters you have under the bus, who just returned, by the way, and everyone was very excited about that. Like, one RKO, and he's cooked. I don't know. I think that could have been booked better. And it's kind of how I feel about the entire night, to be honest. Big Jim, Solo Sikoa, you got him going after his younger brother for the United States Championship. That was a fun match. Nothing special, predictable. And that gets me to my biggest gripe. Seth Rollins and LA Knight. First off, Seth Rollins is a heel. So if you have a heel who you have Michael Cole preemptively saying for that match and the main event, oh yeah, they've been having some issues with their knee, which is kind of interesting how we had 2 different wrestlers with knee problems. I think it was actually the same knee too. But either way, you have him preemptively telling us this, so we're supposed to like kind of understand that this match might be like what we're expecting. It's like, okay. But I think myself and a lot of people were kind of anticipating that Seth Rollins was going to cash in his briefcase on Goldberg, right? So like it's Goldberg's retirement match. He's going after the world heavyweight title. He's going to win. It'll be a great send-off. And he's sitting there holding the belt, and then the music hits, Seth Rollins comes out. I think we all kind of figured out that's what was going to happen, and I wouldn't have been mad if that's what did happen. Like, Is it kind of predictable? Yes. Is it awesome? Yes. It's great. It's a great way to give Goldberg a send off and get into a new era with Seth Rollins being World Heavyweight Champion. And I think that was the plan. So if that's the plan, and you got Seth Rollins, who's pivotal to this whole thing happening, why, if he comes in saying he's got a knee problem, did you put him in a freaking match that same night? I don't understand what the point of risking that was. He's got a faction of two younger guys who are ready to get out there and prove themselves. So if LA Knight had come out and been like, or sorry, if Seth Rollins had come out and LA Knight's in the ring, he's like, no. You think you're getting me. You don't deserve me. I've got this. I've got bigger plans. And then he sends Bronson Reed down or Braun Breaker, and they, the place would have booed. They would have been disappointed because they didn't get the match that they thought they were going to get. But guess what? Seth Rollins is a heel. That's building him up as a heel even more, and whoever he sends down to the ring. And it's building up LA Knight as well, because he's a baby face who's not getting the bad guy in the ring, right? So, that's good writing. I'm not patting myself on the back. It's just like a common sense thing, because now we're trying to flex, Seth Rollins, he's going to be out maybe 5 to 6 months, but he doesn't have to do anything with that briefcase until next July or next June. And it's like, so why didn't we use that mentality to put the fucking World Heavyweight belt on him and continue the story? We're used to having champions that have the belt and don't wrestle for months on end. That's nothing new to us. So why did we not do something else? Instead, we have him go out and wrestle, further injuring his knee to where he can't even finish the match. I mean, the ending of that match was bull crap. You can tell LA Knight's pissed. Seth Rollins is cussing when they get him out of the ring. And then Goldberg loses to Gunther, and that's it. I mean, and I could just tell watching this that this wasn't going the way it was supposed to go. And I think a lot of people did. And I knew as soon as we could hear from Goldberg that we were going to hear it didn't go the way he wanted it to. And that happened a lot sooner than I thought. So he has been interviewed, I believe it was one night ago, and he has an NDA, so he can't say too much right now, but he said word for word, he was pissed off that he got cut off on his speech and that things didn't go how they were supposed to. And that was frustrating because he had already not gotten a lot of things that he asked for that weren't big things. It was just like, hey, I'm a legend. This is my retirement match. Could you guys give me a little wiggle room here or there? And he said it just didn't happen. So there's a lot of things, and I can't wait he said in 2 weeks he'll be able to really spill the beans on it. But it's kind of sad. You've got someone like Goldberg in his hometown, and he's retiring. He's got all these friends and family there, and it's supposed to be a big night for him. You retcon your plans with him. I can pretty much bet money he was going to win the World Heavyweight title. And then not only that, you don't let the man finish his speech on live TV. I have a problem with that because, as I told you guys when I started this episode, he is one of 3 of the first wrestling action figures that I got. So he's one of the 3 first wrestlers that I was ever aware of existing. So I haven't always been like the biggest Goldberg fan, but I've always had this, kind of connection with him in that way. Just like Kevin Nash. Like I kind of think Kevin Nash is a douchebag in real life and wasn't really a fan of him as a wrestler, but still him and Goldberg and Sting were my first 3 wrestling figures that got me to where I am today as a wrestling fan. So I can't believe I'm saying this. I was excited for him versus Gunther. I thought it was going to be a really good match, which it wasn't terrible. Goldberg was definitely hurting. And he did talk about how he had to get stem cells to be able to do what he did in that match. So he's probably in a lot worse shape before he got the stem cells. But he did say he's been training a lot and he's working to get himself a lot healthier because he wants to stay in shape. And that's interesting. He also said that he's done with WWE right now, but he can't say for sure he's officially retired from professional wrestling. So that's also interesting. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I can't help but feel like this retirement match wasn't what he signed up for, what he was told was going to happen. And he's definitely a guy who did this more for the moment than the money. So with that being said, it's all over his face. It's all over his face in this interview that he did not get what he wanted and he doesn't feel satisfied. Like he still needs that retirement. He wants that nice final send off and he didn't get it. WWE did not give it to him. And what makes me really frustrated, and I believe this because you can see from cell phone videos what was going on in the background. He said WWE was more than aware that he was given this speech. And they should have done something to allow that to go on. And, at first I'm thinking like, well, it's live TV, NBC, they got other things scheduled, blah, 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 blah. Well, he said they would have made sure it happened for The Undertaker. 100% agreed. I mean, without a doubt. They would give The Undertaker a whole hour on the mic if he asked for it. And then he said, John Cena's getting a whole freaking world tour for his retirement. He's like, I asked for one night. I asked for one speech. So, and he, he said he wanted to give like a 5-6 minute speech. They gave him 30 seconds, if that. Now, what's interesting is in cell phone videos, you can literally see the camera guys getting in his face and doing like a sorry thing. And then they count down. And that's when he drops his head. And you can just tell he knows he's getting fucked. He's getting fucked on his retirement speech in his hometown on his retirement match on this grand stage. And, I think he was supposed to also have another world heavyweight title win under his belt. So there's that little stab too. It's just a lot. And I could argue that Seth Rollins getting hurt and the match not ending the way it was supposed to with LA Knight, maybe they had extra time and they tried to drag Goldberg and Gunther out because that is the longest match Goldberg has had, I believe, since 2006, like early 2000s. It's the longest match he's had. So I truly believe they try to drag it out and then maybe they forgot about his speech or I don't know, but it was a mess. Saturday night's main event was terrible. I could have done without watching any of it. All it did was make me frustrated as a wrestling fan. And mainly for the talent, because I feel like they're all kind of, like I said, Drew McIntyre, that was terrible. He didn't get jobbed, but like it was pretty close. So yeah, I don't know. Saturday night's main event was terrible. I wasn't happy with any of it. Like I said, Soska, Jimmy Uso was entertaining, but predictable, So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts. Now, Raw was a good Raw. And, we had this gauntlet match, which I remember me and some of my buddies were joking, like, this is Triple H apologizing for Saturday. Because it's like right off jump, you're advertising that we're going to get Braun Breaker, Jey Uso, CM Punk. Like, we're getting this epic match. And it's like CM Punk's only wrestled on Raw on live TV, I think, once since he's come back. So it's like, now we're just getting a CM Punk match on Raw. Okay. Well, he won, so that's cool. But yeah, Raw was pretty good. They don't address Seth Rollins' injury more than just saying, we don't need to update. He's got till next June or July, whatever Paul Heyman says. So we don't really get a clear update. Seth Rollins has been interviewed, though, outside of wrestling, and he did say that he was, I believe, in Jacksonville getting his knee looked at during Raw. That's why he wasn't at Raw. And there was so much fluid in his knee from being swollen that they couldn't do proper scans. So he was going to go back and get more scans done in a week or so. So he's not really sure, but he said if you ask him, just based off how he's feeling, his experience with knee problems, he's going to be out for a while. So that sucks to hear. But again, I don't think anyone would have had an issue with him getting the World Heavyweight Championship on Saturday night's main event and making for an epic conclusion to the night and an epic conclusion to Goldberg's career in WWE. So they dropped the ball big time. It's a big blunder. I don't know how they're going to recover, but we'll see. Now, I think that's all I wanted to talk about on this episode. So going forward, I am going to do this on Tuesdays. So today's a rare occurrence because I screwed up my episode yesterday. I had to redo it. So going forward, it's going to be on Tuesdays. 6 p.m. is the time I'm shooting for. If that changes, I'll, of course, keep you guys posted. But we're trying to have consistency with our podcast going forward. So Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then, of course, Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dimitri and myself will be tackling movies and other topics and pop culture as it is. And we're going to have guests. We have a guest this Sunday that we're very excited about. We've been wanting to have her on for a while. So that's going to be cool. It's actually the person who introduced me to Letterboxd, which is what I use religiously now for kind of logging movies that I've watched, I want to watch, and putting my thoughts down. And Letterboxd has a 5-star rating system, and we have a 5 stones rating system. So it's nice because whatever my rating is in Letterboxd, I can translate that to our podcast. So yeah, Letterboxd is great. And I learned about its existence because of our special guest. So I'm excited to be able to talk to her about that. And yeah, so tune in this Sunday for our next episode of Eye of the Stone. And until next Tuesday, check out some wrestling and come back and we can talk about some things. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I will catch you next week.